Now I have the pleasure of being joined by Pro Football Focus's college football analyst, Max Chadwick. Max, thanks for taking some time.
Dude, I'm happy to be on, man. It's weird. We went to Syracuse together, now talking to each other again a few years later now. I mean, it's super cool, man. I'm happy to see what you guys are doing now.
Yeah, thank you. Time flies. It really is incredible how fast everything's moving, and how fast this Super Bowl 58 has kind of snuck up on us. The football season went by really quickly. I know you're big into the college game, but looking at some NFL things when it comes to this game, just first overall, what intrigues you about this Super Bowl matchup?
Dude, it's a really cool Super Bowl matchup, honestly. I know a lot of people, this is kind of the last one they wanted going into Conference Championship Sunday, where everyone kind of wanted Ravens, Lions, and we didn't get either of those two teams. But I still think this is a really good matchup. Obviously, it's a rematch of the 2019 Super Bowl where Patrick Mahomes won his first ring. Now he's going for his third now, which is absolutely absurd considering how young he is. So yeah, it's a really cool matchup. I think San Francisco, making the argument, it has a better team than Kansas City, but then again, Kansas City has number 15 under center. So that's really the deciding factor I think could be in this game. And yeah, it's cool from the Chiefs side of things, how they're just here again, fourth time in 5 years now. And then for the 49ers, they're getting back to this level, where George Kittle and Nick Bosa were, devastated after losing to the Chiefs the first time. Now they're going to want to get revenge. And now you got Brock Purdy under center, Mr. Irrelevant, the best Mr. Irrelevant of all time. Yeah, it's a really cool matchup. And I think it'll be a great game. Honestly, I think it'll be a really close game between both these teams.
Let's talk a little bit about Brock Purdy. I was reading the lowest draft. I guess you couldn't possibly be drafted lower than Brock Purdy. The lowest drafted quarterback that didn't go undrafted, like Kurt Warner, to start in a Super Bowl. I don't know how much you got to watch of him when he was at Iowa State, but seeing him in college to where he is now, how much has he actually improved as a player?
Honestly, man, he's improved a lot. First of all, and he's in a very don't get me wrong, he's been phenomenal, but he's also in a very quarterback friendly system where Kyle Shanahan. I mean, there are very few coaches in the NFL I'd rather play for than Kyle Shanahan if I'm a quarterback. And then also you have one of the best supporting casts in the NFL. You got Christian McCaffrey, MVP candidate at running back. You got George Kittle, one of the best tight ends in the league. You got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, two of the probably 10 to 15 best receivers in the NFL. So he's got a very good system, but he has also played at a super high level this year. He's an MVP finalist as well this year too. So I have been so impressed by him. I thought he was underdrafted. Honestly, I don't want to like toot my own horn here. I never expected him to be at this level, but I always thought he was underdrafted. I thought he should have been going a lot higher than this. To kind of shout out my former coworker, Mike Renner, he actually had Brock Purdy as a projected first round pick in his way too early 2021 mock draft, I believe. And he ended up actually staying in school for a couple more years after that. But, he saw something in Brock Purdy then that not a lot of other people saw. So I think he was always a really good college quarterback. He got into a really awesome system, got a great opportunity as well in San Francisco when Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo both went down. And kudos to him, man. He saw that opportunity, he did not let it go. So he has been. It's a really cool story. I know a lot of people are kind of sick of it, and a lot of people are kind of trashing him and saying he's not as good as people think. He's Mr. Irrelevant, and he's starting in a Super Bowl, man. Like that's as cool as it gets in the NFL. So I've been blown away by him, and I think San Francisco has probably found their quarterback of the future for a pretty long time now.
That's some pretty incredible foresight to have him as a way too early first round pick before he even, would
I
have
thought he was
declared for the
crazy for
draft.
doing it, man. Yeah, but he did it, and he looks great for it now, honestly.
That is really impressive. You mentioned Kyle Shanahan's system. I think that's a really interesting, I don't even know if it's a subplot. It's kind of a main plot of the NFL these days is that you have all these coaches that came from that same, Washington staff under Kyle's dad, Mike Shanahan, whether it be Sean McVay or Matt LaFleur or Bobby Slowick, the Texans offensive coordinator or whatnot. How much, influence do you see Kyle Shanahan's this Shanahan system having in both the NFL and trickling down to the college ranks?
Dude, it's a lot, man. I mean, I think the one thing he does well is the zone running scheme that he runs. And Christian McCaffrey has obviously done a fantastic job with that. And you saw Mike McDaniel kind of took that. He was Shanahan. He worked under Shanahan. Now he's with the Miami Dolphins, and he's took that with Raheem Mostert. You took a lot of the pass game concepts too, and you see how electric that Miami offense is. So, basically any offensive coach under Kyle Shanahan now, people are looking at it and say, hey, we want that guy next. And it's kind of like the Sean McVay thing, or it's like anyone that's even like within 10 feet of Kyle Shanahan is getting hired as the next offensive coordinator for an NFL team right now. So, yeah, I think Kyle Shanahan, listen, not to take away from him. I mean, we have probably the two best offensive coaches in the NFL in this game between him and Andy Reid. I think we're going to see a lot of really interesting and new and unique play calls in this game. I think this is going to be a chess match between two of the best offensive minds the sport has ever seen, honestly, between him and Andy Reid. So, Kyle Shanahan, man, his scheme has definitely revolutionized a lot about the NFL. And you see, it's a copycat league, honestly. A lot of teams now are trying to, do that and replicate that. But obviously, they can't do it to the extreme level, because when you have a coach who is as smart as Kyle Shanahan and draws up a scheme as beautifully as anyone, combined the fact, like I just mentioned before, they have unbelievable talent in that offense too. That's why they're in the Super Bowl right now. And I think you're seeing the same thing with the Kansas City Chiefs, and you have a great offensive coach with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. That's why they've been in the Super Bowl for 4 out of the last 5 years too. So, I'm really excited to see not only the players on the field, I'm excited to see the kind of the chess match between Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid on the Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, it will be really fascinating. It's not often that head coaches go against each other multiple times in a Super Bowl. I think is obviously, Belichick versus Coughlin when you had the Brady Patriots against the Manning Giants, and that's really it in the 21st century when it comes to, head coaching rematches in the Super Bowl. How different do you think this chess match is going to be from the one we saw? I guess it was, February of 2020. So 4 years ago, the 49ers up by 10 in the fourth quarter, the Chiefs storm back to win. How different do you think this game is going to be, even though, you have same head coaches? Obviously San Francisco has a different quarterback, but you still do have a lot of the same weapons outside of McCaffrey on that San Francisco side.
I think you might see a little more desperation out of San Francisco in this game. I think, with Jimmy Garoppolo, they kind of played it safe for a while. And then, they could have honestly hit the game winner, but Jimmy Garoppolo just overthrew him and one of the final plays of the game. So I think you're going to see a little more desperation. I think, honestly, Brock Purdy is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think Kyle Shanahan's going to open that up a little bit more. But listen, you saw, in the mic'd up after the Super Bowl in 2019, George Kittle was talking to himself and saying, I'm going to be back here. I'm going to be back here. I'm not going to let this moment slip again. I think the entire team feels that way right now. I think they're kind of looking at it and saying, hey, this is our chance now. Whereas Kansas City has been here basically every year for the last half decade. And they kind of, it's business as usual for them. Now, I do think, obviously, I'm not saying they're not going to come out swinging because they always do in the Super Bowl, and you always see Andy Reid with this brand new play call that nobody's ever seen before. They're going to do the same exact thing. But I do think there's going to be a little more desperation out of San Francisco, whereas both teams in 2019 were getting into that Super Bowl for the first time. Now it's kind of like, all right, San Francisco hasn't been there since 2019, whereas Kansas City has basically been there every year since that year. So I think San Francisco will have a little more desperation. You might see a little more innovative play calling probably from Kyle Shanahan, a little more aggressive defense too from the 49ers as well.
I would think so. It felt like, outside of that, one deep shot that Garoppolo missed, it was more of playing not to lose than playing to win back in 2019. Moving over to the Chiefs side, you mentioned it, four Super Bowls in 5 years now. In terms of, matchup excitement coming into the game, where do you think, this one ranks? I know, there's nothing like the first against the 49ers, and then Mahomes versus Brady has its excitement last year, getting back after not being there the year before. This year, having to do it on the road. Where do you think this one ranks in terms of excitement going into the game on the Chiefs side of things?
Yeah, I think this is matchup wise, it's interesting. I think matchup wise, you could say it's maybe the third or fourth most exciting. That's not taken away from the game. I just think the Eagles game last year was huge with the Kelce Bowl and all that. And then you got the Buccaneers game. You got the GOAT Tom Brady against the young GOAT and Patrick Mahomes. I still think this is a really exciting game because Patrick Mahomes has really had to put this team on his back this year, honestly. And listen, the defense, not to take away from them either. The Chiefs put up 17 points against the Ravens and won that game. So I think the defense has really been criminally underrated. I know everyone likes to look at Patrick Mahomes and say, hey, he's the guy. And yes, he is the guy. But Steve Spagnuolo and his defense with Chris Jones leading it has been phenomenal, and honestly has probably been the driving force for why they're even in this game right now. But offensively, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. It's Travis Kelce. Rashee Rice has been a nice rookie for them this year. But other than that, they've had basically nothing on offense. And Isaiah Pacheco's a nice back as well. But Patrick Mahomes has really had to carry this team more this year. And it's crazy that, in the 2 years post Tyreek Hill, who's now arguably the best receiver in the NFL, in the 2 years since, they've still been in the Super Bowl both years, and they could win back-to-back Super Bowls without Tyreek Hill, which is nuts, and just shows how good Patrick Mahomes actually is that, he loses his top receiver, and he's still leading the Chiefs to the Super Bowl. So I'm really excited to see him in this game. This is a really good San Francisco defense on all three levels that they got there. So I think they're going to be really aggressive with him, and I think if Patrick Mahomes can find Travis Kelce, like they did in the AFC Championship game, they have a shot in this game. But if they take him away, man, it could be a long night, honestly, for Patrick Mahomes.
I know we're still a week and a half away recording this on Thursday, February 1st, and there's still a lot to dive into and figure out. But is there anyone kind of under the radar on either side that, you might not think might have a big impact on this game that you think, oh, this guy could play a major role, whether it's a skill position player or a defensive player or something along those lines?
That's a good question, man. I think you got to look at the Chiefs linebackers. I think that they have to have, they have to play really well. I think Leo Chanel, who's a really good pass rusher, he's got to get home to Brock Purdy. I think Nick Bolton and Willie Gay Jr. They're gonna have a lot of their hands full with Christian McCaffrey coming out of the backfield, with George Kittle obviously at tight end as well. I think they need to be playing well. The other thing I would say is I think the Chiefs corners also are going to have a lot of pressure on them between Trent McDuffie, who was a first-team All-Pro this year, has been phenomenal. L'Jarius Sneed has also been a really good corner. Like I mentioned before, you got Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel there. So the Chiefs' defense handling these weapons is going to be difficult for them. But I think that they might have the corners to at least bother them enough. And then on the other side of the ball, you look at the 49ers, it's not really an underrated player at all, but Fred Warner might be matched up with Travis Kelce a little bit in this game. I don't know how much they actually will do that. They probably will send, Jair Brown or Gibson to cover him a little bit. But I do think that the 49ers as well are going to have to take away Travis Kelce. So whoever has that responsibility is going to have a lot of pressure on them in this game to take away what has been by far the Chiefs' best weapon this year.
Yeah, I think if you're the 49ers kicker, Jake Moody, I would make sure not to do your practice in front of Travis Kelce next Sunday. I think Justin Tucker might have learned his lesson when warming up in front of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. You don't want to piss that guy off, because then he'll go for 11 for 116 and a touchdown, and making plays like he's 24 instead of the 34 like he actually is. Obviously a big storyline about this Super Bowl is the first Super Bowl being held in Las Vegas, and it being a burgeoning sports city. I know the Pac-12 title game has been there, but I think this might be a little bit of a bigger stage. What do you make of the spectacle of the Super Bowl being held in a place like Las Vegas? And do you have any Vegas experiences?
Oh, I do have a few Vegas experiences, and I'm cautioning you guys as you make your way down to Las Vegas, because it is it is an easy city to fall into the hypnosis of Las Vegas. It's very easy to fall into that. But so have fun down there for sure. But yeah, man, Las Vegas is best. It's a really fun city. I've been there 3 times now. So it's a really cool city. It's cool that the Super Bowl is being held there. I'm sure the coaches on both sides are gonna be like, listen, guys, don't enjoy it too much. Like this is the biggest game of the season. Like, don't do that. So I'm sure that'll be a big talking point too. It's just like, hey, let's all go do all of the media opportunities that we have to do, and then let's go back to our hotel rooms, and then let's just prepare for the game. But yeah, it's a cool city. It's got everything you want, man. If you want to gamble, if you want to go see shows, I just got everything you want. So yeah, definitely enjoy it while you're down there, man. And it's cool that, it's getting more and more sporting events and more teams. Honestly, you got the Raiders there now, you got the Golden Knights there as well. I know they're trying to get a baseball team there. It's super cool to see how, and even an NBA team, I've heard they're going to try to get there too. But it's cool to see how, it once was, a great city. Now it's becoming a huge sports city. And now, like I said, it's the first Super Bowl ever held in Las Vegas. So yeah, it should be a really interesting environment for sure.
It'll be a spectacle for sure. I got one college question to leave you with. The news that Jeff Hafley was leaving Boston College to become the Packers defensive coordinator, I'm sure was something that I don't know if it fired you up, but it really is something interesting to talk about. And a lot of the discourse about it was, college coaching college football is not even really coaching anymore. And that was a lot of the stuff I was seeing. What was your take on college coaches leaving for the NFL? Is this something we're going to be seeing a lot more? And what does the college game need to do to fix that? Because they don't want, a coach leaving on January 31st is really, not ideal for any program, no matter, whether it's a power conference team, whether it's, a group of five team, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, for sure. I think some people were overreacting a little bit too much to this news. I think, he was a guy that coached in the NFL before. He was a DB's coach for actually the 49ers back in 2016 to 2018. And coached for the Browns and Buccaneers as well. So this is a guy who I think always, loved the NFL, wanted to get back there at some point. He was fine at Boston College, 22-6, 22-26 overall record there. He had his best year yet this past season, but I think, he probably was a little bit on the hot seat. I wouldn't say he was like fully on the hot seat yet, but he was probably thinking to himself, hey, if I don't have a couple good years here, I might be on my way out. So he saw an opportunity with the Packers to get a defensive coordinator job, which is honestly, going from Boston College head coach to Packers defensive coordinator, like it's not like it's a downward move. I think that's like a pretty, it doesn't sound off any alarms in my head, but you're right. I do think there are some coaches who are getting a little bit sick of it. I mean, you saw Nick Saban retired, and one of the reports that came out was that Nick Saban was just tired of dealing with NIL and dealing with the transfer portal and how crazy and how college football is just not at all like the college football that we grew up with, honestly. So it's an ever-changing game. I don't think it's going to ever. We're kind of too far gone now. Where I think NIL is just what it is, and they're going to try to make some changes to it. And you saw Tennessee got some trouble earlier this week, but. Yeah, man, I know a lot of coaches right now are getting a little bit tired of dealing with all this, but I just think that's where the game is heading. And I think if you're not, excelling in NIL and you're not excelling in the transfer portal, it's difficult for you to excel on the field. I don't care how good of a coach you are. So, yeah, Jeff Hafley, that might have played a part for him, but I do think he wanted to get back to the NFL and potentially become a head coach eventually in the NFL. And, with the Green Bay Packers, when you're running that defense where Matt LaFleur is really just running the offense, you have a chance to do that if you have a really good defense. So I think he always wanted to get back to the NFL, but you're right. There is a storyline in college football right now where a lot of coaches might just be getting sick of the college game and might want to go to the NFL where it's a little more structured. Whereas the college football right now just feels like the wild, wild west right now.
It's really interesting to see. Obviously, the big lever of college football is Jim Harbaugh going back to the NFL with the Chargers, and then you had the Hafley news yesterday as well. Max, thank you so much again. You can find all of his stuff at wherever you find your Pro Football Focus podcasts. What is it? PFF.com? Would that be correct? Yep. PFF.com.
Yes, yeah, you can find it there. Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking some time and enjoy the game.
Of course, man. Thank you.